I'm your boogeyman, that's what I am. I'm here to do whatever I can. Be it early morning, late afternoon, or at midnight.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Ep.5 of Fire and Ice Podcast. We have an unbelievable slate in store for you today. We have an incredible interview with Vinny the Lion O'Brien. He was the Golden Gloves champion boxer, went on to become a professional boxer. The guy ended up living in a tent for a month and a half, and now he's one of the most prolific stuntmen in Hollywood. It's honestly, there should be a movie about him. But first, I want to give a very important introduction to the newest member of Fire and Ice, super producer Luke.
Luke!
You might recognize him from his bucket against Georgetown in 2010 with a little in and out and finger roll, or taking it to the cup against Florida Gulf Coast the year that Dunk City was born. But Luke's going to be doing a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, as well as, some of our fun and interactive segments. Luke, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Coach and Icey. I'm really happy to be joining Fire and Ice. As you mentioned, I've already been doing the daily chill, so not new to the sports chill, but happy to be joining Fire and Ice.
Yeah, we absolutely love to have you. You are going to be an integral part of this podcast going forward. And we're going to get back to you with the top three later on. But for right now, let's tune in to the electric Vinny the Lion O'Brien.
What's going on, everybody? We are super excited to have this guest here tonight with Fire and Ice Podcast. I've said this before about people being the most interesting man in the world. I truly think this individual is the most interesting man in the world. He's been a professional boxer. The guy lived in Alaska in a tent on the beach, and now he's one of the most prominent stuntmen in Hollywood. Look at him right now. This guy came straight from the hospital, none other than Vinny the Lion O'Brien. Vinny, thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for that, dude. That was a great introduction. Thanks for having me.
I mean, the first thing we have to ask, what the heck is going on? You got the hospital band on right now.
Oh, yes.
The messed up grill. What happened? What's going on today?
I'll give the viewers a good little view at it. So that's 8 stitches. So every week I moto and I do motocross. So I rent the track with me and 20 to 30 of my stunt buddies. And so today went after it, and I was just jumping a normal 60-foot double that I normally do all the time, and swapped out on me and went face first into the dirt. So 8 stitches later, and I'm here, bro. I'm here.
Yeah, man. I mean, it looks natural, sounds natural. Speaking of natural, I know that you were a fighter. Was that always natural with you early in your childhood?
I'd have to say because I was funny because I was actually born in San Diego, and then I always say it's kind of a funny joke that my parents hated me and moved me to the East Coast, but just because it was the beach life. And I got there, and I remember when I was 5 years old, a kid took my truck, one of my toy trucks, and my dad says to me, not like, hey, I'm going to go down and get your truck for you. He tells me, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, okay, well, I took the truck that I didn't really like so much, and I went down there. I hit the kid with the truck, and then I took my truck back. So I left him that truck. He kind of got a consolation prize, but that was kind of in my nature, I guess. And then, I grew up in Bayonne and then Montclair, and so they were pretty rough areas, and I was always the white boy and da-da-da. And so, you learned real quick that, you had to fend for yourself and kind of, defend yourself, and there's nobody that's going to sit there and come and, defend for you unless you do it yourself, So the fighting kind of came, and I actually didn't get into that until I was 18, 19-ish. So I went my whole life, and then I've always just kind of been a street fighter type guy, I guess. And I was there,
Were you playing other sports growing up, or were you kind of just into the whole motocross? Like, how did everything come to be? Where did it all start from?
Man, so it's funny because my mom, she was really smart. My parents separated when I was 8 years old, and my mom was really smart because she put me in every form of athletics that she possibly could have. Me and my brother, because we're both troublemakers, So we were season to season to season. So you name a sport, I have done it. And so for me, like one of my main sports was I did wrestling for 8 years. That was a good focal point in my life. I've played baseball, football. You go down the line. I've played it. I've done it. I've tried it, and even to BMX and skateboarding and rollerblading, and getting into motorcycles and all that. So just for me, whether it was traditional or whether it was extreme or whatever it was, that's just kind of where I gravitated to. I think it was just kind of a natural athleticism inside me, but I also kind of carried a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because I was the smallest guy always around. Always,
Really?
so you never looked at me and was like now you look at me like, oh, okay, that's a 5'10" guy, 160, looks pretty good, it's okay, maybe he's an athlete, right? But like back then, my freshman year, I was the only kid who weighed as much as his football jersey. I was number 85, so I was 85 pounds my freshman year.
Freshman year of high school.
Freshman year of high school, I was a runt, dude. I was a runt.
Wow.
But going into 8th grade, I got voted like most athletic. So people saw my athleticism was there. I just didn't have the size and my stature come behind me yet, and so that kind of, I kind of held that, I kind of like that, and I've said my entire life, I wouldn't give up 1 inch for my abilities. And I'm not a religious guy, but I'm a spiritual guy, and I believe in God, and I believe I've been gifted some really beautiful talents, and I've kind of made whatever I could out of them, is kind of my ability, I think.
Absolutely.
I love that.
So you're 85 pounds in high school. Does somebody come to you and just say, hey, you're athletic enough, let's put some boxing gloves on this guy? Or did you go there? How did it all begin?
And when was the lion born? I need to know, is this when the lion was born, or was that later on?
That was later on.
Okay.
I raced motocross most of my high school career, and then I devoted more time to wrestling. That was kind of I kind of jumped away from baseball, and then football I kind of jumped away from, and kind of wrestling was really up my alley. And when I didn't do that, I was motocross, and with my pops and my brother and my dad knew that we were crazy enough that we loved motorcycles, and we would go ride, and then it evolved, and then we got into the race culture and blah, blah, blah. But no, it was funny because my entire life, everyone's like, oh, Vinny's going to, grow up to be a lawyer or this or that and all this. Everybody always put me in their little box, because I was just a polite little kid, and I was just always nice, but I did my thing, and so no one off the street would pick me up and be like, hey, you're athletic and let's get you into boxing. Everyone thought I was kind of too nice. No one thought even in my family, they didn't think I was a bruiser, But then, I didn't get into boxing until I raced an East Coast series down in Florida, and that was right after I graduated high school. And then I came back, and my mom introduced me to my first boxing coach, and that's kind of where that went,
And how did that start up? Are you jumping into fights right away? We're not, we like boxing, but we don't know the behind the scenes. So we want to give people, what goes into it. What's, before your first fight, what's the lead up time? Were you sparring with different people? Do you ever have to tune somebody up beforehand? Do you ever get tuned up when you first started?
So that's the thing, like that's the beauty, and I'll give you kind of a breakdown of what I got, but that's the beauty of boxing is, one way or another, your ego is going to get smashed, and you're either going to come back up or you're not. And that it's a beautiful metaphor of life, So you sit there but when I got into boxing, here I thought I was going to come in. I was like, I'm going to be this golden boy and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be this guy. And so I sit there, and it was kind of like a fitness boxing gym, but we also had a fight team and stuff like that. And it was just kind of like this guy was like a shady coach in the beginning, because my first coach that I met, he couldn't train me because he had stuff in his life going on. So anyways, I go to this gym, and I'm sitting there, and I'm training for a couple weeks, and I'm kind of a naive kid. I kind of sit there, and I'm like, I'm just boxing, I'm hitting. And I didn't know that everybody was eyeing me up. So everyone's eyeing me up, and then they asked me like 3 weeks in, they're like, "Hey, you wanna do some light sparring?" I was like, "Yeah, I want to do some light sparring. Like that's why I'm here, And so we get in the ring, and little do I know this guy is 3-0, and this guy is training for a fight coming up, and he goes to take my head off. I must have saw white in 1 minute or 5 times in 1 minute. You know what I mean? Like it was just bomb, bomb, bomb. And I just stayed up, and I never went down. And they're like, "You good?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." Now I know what it is. Now we're fighting, and whether my skill or not, I'm going to punch you as hard as I can in the face. You know what I mean? And wherever that works out, that works out. So that's kind of what's
going through your head right there when you do start to see white.
So for me, I always tell people boxing finds you. You don't find boxing. So you can always tell a fighter right away off the first couple times they spar, you see if they turtle up or if they take it and they use it, And so for me, it was just kind of inside me where I was just like, okay, you got me. And I may not know what you know, but I'm going to punch you hard in the face. I know that for a fact. At least one, you know what I mean? And you may put me down, you may do whatever, but I'm going to get one on you, And that was kind of my attitude, So I get there and you're just like, you're buzzing, You're like, holy crap. It's just a different thing because you're like, it's controlled. Like I want to just pick this guy up and slam him on the ground and but you can't because that's not what it is, right? So you have instincts that you got to fight, but then you have other instincts that you got to let go, and it's a bunch of stuff with it, But he was just tuning me up. He tuned me up for the first round, tuned me up for the second round, and I don't know what it was inside me, my instincts, but I saw him. He was a southpaw, and that's already another art to fighting. But anyways, he jumps in with his jabs, and he kept on jumping in with his jabs. And I saw this, and for some reason, I threw an uppercut as soon as he jumped in, and I hit him right in the solar plex, and he went down like whoa, like on the ground, rolling around. 5 minutes, he couldn't get up. He couldn't get up, and the coach called sparring, and I was like, I like this shit. This is pretty cool. You know what I mean? And then everybody who knows who I am, I'm a jump all in kind of guy. As soon as I was like, okay, cool. When's the next fight? What do I got to do? Da-da-da. If I'm beating this guy, I'm going into fighting, So it's like that. And they just told me, okay, you got this tournament, you got this fight, you got this. I was like, okay, cool. And so I went the next 5 months at Golden for the training for boxing, and I went into the Diamond Glove tournament. I won one, lost one in that, and then I got to the Golden Glove tournament, and I made it all the way to the finals, which kind of was like, boxing's a tight-knit community, and they were like, who the hell is this kid? You know what I mean? And plus I dyed my hair. I came in with these crazy mohawks. I was a nutcase, and and they're like, who is this white boy, with dyed hair, So and I was doing well, and I made it to the finals, and then I got lost and caught up in the moment, and I lost by 2 points in the finals. But still, I got recognition from that. And then I came back, and I gave up everything. I gave up booze, drinking, partying, because I was partying between fights and stuff, and I wasn't really taking it as serious as I could have. Girls, you name it, I gave it up, and I ate, slept, and drank boxing for 6 months, and went after it the next time around, and I won fighter of the night, fighter of the tournament, and I was 2010 Golden Glove champion. So it was a beautiful moment in my life, because I figured at that time when I went back after it, everybody always like thinks everything's going to come out on like a bed of roses and everything's going to be all perfect and all this kind of stuff. And how I looked at it was, yes, I failed. Yes, I it didn't happen the way I wanted to, but also I didn't give up everything I needed to give up. I didn't do all the things I needed to do. So I was like, okay, so if that's the case, let me go back to the drawing board. That's the beauty of like one-on-one sports. You really get to, it's coming back at you. There's nobody else. Yeah, you got a team and stuff behind you, but it's you in the ring. It's you in the road work. It's you doing your strength and conditioning. It's you putting in, all the work that you need to be putting in. So I just went back to the drawing board and I said, I'm going to give up everything. I'm going to give everything I can at this. And if I lose, if I fail, it's not in my cards. I can move on with that. I can go on. I can move. And then wherever I go is wherever I go. But before that, until I know that, I'm not leaving, and then I won and, then I turned pro and all that good stuff,
Yeah, I mean, just coming on, you can see your mentality. You're a scrappy guy. You can tell. I mean, you came on. There's blood on your arm right now. You absolutely love to see it. I was going to ask you if your confidence was ever lacking, but I don't think you have that in your body. I want to know when the lion was born, if it was born in boxing.
So it was definitely, because I would say I wasn't as strong nor confident when I was younger. When I was smaller, even though my dad, he said, because he was small like me, he's like, you handled being small so much better than I did. But I still had, the societal views, of the girls not being so successful with the girls and da-da-da-da. Even though like I was like versatile, I knew everybody, I was popular, I was all that kind of stuff. I just didn't, I was a small kid still, so you kind of measure up to other guys that are around you. And so I wasn't as strong as I was then. I cared what other people's views were of me. I kind of, I swayed in a sense instead of just beating my own path, But I'd say the lion was born in boxing. So that's why whenever I was sparring, like that nickname was given to me, and there was a guy there that was a middleweight, and I was 140 pounds at the time, and there was a middleweight in there, and he was 178 pounds. and no one would spar him. He's great. He was 33-2 or something like that. He's a great fighter, slick fighter, had ferocious shots. And I was like, nobody wanted to spar. I was like, let's go. Come on. I was like, don't try and crush me. I was like, but we're going to go. I was like, I'm going to hit you hard. And he's like, okay, kid. So then we start going, and I pushed and pushed and pushed, and he's laughing, cause I'm socking him. He's socking me, and we're going. And he's like, and then like, I see him go from laughing to serious face. And I was like, okay, I got your attention now. I hit you with a couple good shots now, So then we just kept on going and battling. And I think we went like 5 or 6 rounds, and I got out, and they were like, dude, you got a heart of a lion. And some kid said, was like, yeah, Vinny the Lion O'Brien. And I was like, yeah, I like that, and that was kind of my mentality. That was kind of my forte in the beginning of my career,
From everything I've read about you, it honestly seems like it's just a movie. Like the guy on the side saying Vinny the Lion O'Brien. Yeah. So you just won Golden Gloves and you turned pro.
Yes.
What is that like? What's it like in terms of training, taking the training to the next level? Can you walk us through, an average day in the life of Vinny O'Brien when it comes to training? What time are you getting up? What type of road work are you putting in? What type of, weightlifting? And what's the daily grind of a pro boxer?
It's exactly that. It's a grind. So the hard, I always say this about professional boxing, and I'm biased, but it's the toughest sport out there. Every sport recognizes it on what it is, conditioning wise, mental, everything you have. And the beauty of it, compared to MMA, I love combat sports, but the beauty of it is you're just using your hands, right? You can't grab, you can't go to the ground, you can't kick, you can't bring any other weapons. It's a very strategic chess match that you have to be conditioned for. You can go ahead and wrap up somebody in MMA and go into a jiu-jitsu position, and you'll get, and I'm not saying it's a full-blown rest, but it's a little bit more of a rest than we get. We put our hands down, we're going to get knocked. So it's a very, very, very highly conditioned sport. And that's what wrestling did for me. Wrestling showed me, put the road work in, do diet well, do the right things, and, and you're going to set yourself up to be in the chance of success, right? So it's not guaranteed until you rock and roll with it, right? And so my daily grind, it was anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of working out a day, plus I had to hold a job. Plus I had, whether I was personal training, whether I was a bartender, I always tried finding maximum pay with minimum hours because of the amount of hours I had to put in boxing. So I'd sit there and I'd get up in the morning and I'd go ahead and, now depending on what schedule and peak I am during my camp, I'm either running at 4 a.m. or I'm running at 9 p.m. Well, if I'm running at 4 a.m, I get home, then I go ahead and I'll eat like a quick little banana with some peanut butter and like a little bit of oats so I can go back to sleep, and then I'll sleep and nap for a couple hours, then wake up. Then I got some hard sparring, which I used to do at Gleason's in New York City, and I'd sit there, and now I'm doing boxing training for maybe about 2 hours, then anywhere from actually 2 to 3 hours depending on what I'm doing. And then I'm sitting there and I'm going for then I go home, I get a little bit of a break, then I got to go do either a strength and conditioning session, a laps in the pool session, which I would do anywhere from 100 to 150 laps, 2 to 3 times a week. Then I'm sitting there, and then and then I'd have track work outside of my runs. So my track work would mean I would do these sprints. I'd do 4 100s, 4 200s, 4 300s, 4 400s, and just beat myself up. And then then at nighttime I found a beautiful thing later in my career, but I would do yoga. And I would do yoga for a good hour, but I would still use it as a sweat. I'd still use it as a workout in a sense, but I try and shut myself down as best I could in that. So, no matter what I was doing, it was average 6 to 8 hours a day that I'm training, and you're busting your ass, and that's not the hard sparring that I would go against when I'd go against the Carlos Abregus, who were #1 out of Argentina, when I'd go from the Burrell twins, who were badass boxers from Brooklyn. I'd go against guys like I went against Danny Garcia's camp, Lamont Peterson's camp, a lot of guys that are, very established, and kids that are, 2-time, 3-time, 4-time, 5-time national champions, Olympic hopefuls, top 10 in the world. I was going against Mikey Garcia's, I was going against some top level guys. And one of my biggest things, in the beginning of my career, I was known as kind of a bruiser. And then I learned the sweet science later. Actually, when I retired, I was probably the best I ever was in boxing. I sat there, and there was times I got my ass kicked, but there was never a time that I said where I ever gave up or I ever quit. Because there's a thing that they do in the gyms where they'll sit there and they'll be like, okay, we're going to do 4 rounds of sparring, and I'll go against their best guy. Now you sit there and you go after and you start cracking at them and you blow your load in the 4th round. What they're going to do, if you got the upper hand or it's 50-50, they're going to be like, you got one more in you? And if you say no, you lost.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to be able to go again. And they'll do that for 3-4 rounds. So they'll try and break you until their guy breaks. Right? So it's just this battle of mental toughness, this battle of your body, this battle of this chess match, and trying to be the most intelligent man in that ring. You know, that's kind of, you know, it was a battle, man. It was a grind. Boxing is you know, you don't have athletic trainers, you don't have, you know, a facility around you, you don't have all these things that football players, basketball players, baseball players. You have to have a full-time job too. I was working 30-40 hours a week as a bartender or personal trainer or whatever the hell I'm doing, and then I'm working out, you know, 80 to 90 hours a week, you know. So it's like you sit there, no, I'm not 80 to 90. You're 60 hours a week. You know what I mean? So, but you're sitting there and you're looking at it. And you're like, you can't wait to sleep. You know, so it's just one. And then plus you're cutting weight. You know, so that's now here's another thing, right? You know.
Yeah. No, actually, I do want to ask you real quickly because I do have to. I'm trying to lose a few pounds before I do shave this mustache. Any diet advice? If you have any, I'm looking for it right now because
You're gonna hate me for saying it, but it's starches and sugars.
Yeah.
2 things, get rid of them. I'll tell you right now, you don't got to work out a damn day in your life if you get rid of those things. Those things go right to fatty cells. They go right to you building up in your body, and they convert into crap that you don't need in your body, and your body doesn't understand it, so it sends it to your fatty cells. So you sit there, and if you do 30 minutes of cardio a day, you're ahead of the game, you know, 1,000 times full. So it's starches and sugars, man. Get rid of them, and you actually don't need them. Have oatmeal in your morning. That's kind of like your only starch, I'd say. But get rid of the breads, the pastas, the rices, all that kind of shit. It's all the good stuff, but it sucks. But we're raised on, you know, on BS, you know. So even my own self, I grew up Italian. So my whole life, I'm getting pasta, breads. You know, like I don't know how to sit at a table and not start dipping some bread into some olive oil. You know what I mean? Like it's just, you know, it's a thing you got to fight. But it's one of those things, you know.
While you're teaching us something, can we just get an instructional best way to throw a 1-2 right now? Just, I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover. But just first off, let me know right now.
Okay. So first thing you got to do is relax those shoulders, right? So I see how low they went, right? So you sit there, you're relaxed, right? So whenever I throw a punch, any kind of fast punch, you see how loose I am? Right? You see, yes, and you get full rotation, right? So think of it as like a towel whip, right? So if you're in a locker room and you go to towel whip, right? If you sit there and you do it too soon, it's a shitty whip, right? You do it too late, it's a shitty whip. So you got to find that spot where you can, and you pull it back. So it's that whip, pop, pop.
Yeah. Punch the computer in the screen.
That's exactly it. But then all you got to do first thing. So if you're ever in a street fight, I tell this to everybody. You aim for the nose, and you put both of them right in the nose. I'll tell you right now, most people are going to sit there. They're going to water up. They don't want no part of it, and it's a done deal, you know. But you make it a quick. It's a bop bop. It's a bop bop. See you later, you know. And then if they do come back, well, now you're in a fight. Game on.
Now you got to run. What was your biggest fight in your professional career? What was like, you know, the premier fight that you were in?
Dude, my pro debut was epic, man. I got to say my pro debut has to be up there. I sold $25,000 worth of tickets. I was on a Zab Judah undercard. I was on pay-per-view my first fight. I was sick as a dog going into this fight. I mean, I had to hide it from the doctors. My phlegm and congested with this brown green crap, dude. I passed out on Quercetin that day for 4 hours. I was done, man. But it's just one of those things when you get there, you gotta perform and it's time to go. And they come in my room when I'm getting taped up and they're like, oh yeah, hey, you're gonna be on pay-per-view tonight. And I was like, cool, you know.
Where was this?
This was at the Prudential Center. So the Prudential Center, as you guys know, and that's where I fought most of my fights actually, that's where the Devils play. So the New Jersey Devils, and so it's a big arena, you know, and it's a really big arena. And I fought in front of that
people, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think the biggest crowd I fought in front of was like 11,500 people. And that was a big Polish fan base. But I fought on 4 IBF championship cards. I fought on a Friday ESPN Friday Nights card. You know, so I kind of had an advanced career, and I dealt with some. I was a big fan favorite, a big crowd pleaser, in the beginning of my career. And so it allowed for me I got some opportunities that I'd say some guys who've been boxing for 20, 30 fights don't get. And I got them early in my career, but I could have flopped. I could have. Now, granted, I had one of my pro losses in the ESPN Friday Night Fights, but then I came back. So it's just all about how you handle it, what you do, where you bring it.
Absolutely. So you just talked about Zav Judah, who's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Who's a boxer in history that you would want to step in the ring with, from any time, wherever it is, whatever time?
Just a fight,
just get around it. I mean, listen, hey, like maybe you want to go Sugar Ray Robinson. So not too many people. He's from the 40s to 50s. A lot of people that they emulate their styles off them, and no one even realized it. Like Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Floyd Mayweather. I can go down the list of how many fighters. You look at Sugar Ray Robinson, and he was such a beautiful fighter. He was a tall fighter, but he could fight in the inside. He would use his outside game to bring you in the inside, and then you think, okay, now this is how I beat a tall fighter. I got to be in the inside and beat him up. But then he would just beat the hell out of you in the inside. So he was, to me, I think he was one of the most beautiful fighters that we'll ever know in boxing. That's my personal opinion.
Love it.
Yeah.
I really have to say, from watching your fights online, and we have the best producer in the game, Luke. He's going to add some right now,
Okay.
So going on as we're playing this. It didn't look like you were afraid of anybody. Like you said, you were a bruiser. You were throwing haymakers in there every fight that I've watched. Were you ever scared in the ring?
So scared, no, because you go in there like training like an animal. You got to believe in yourself, and that's what boxing did for me, was show the belief in who I am. I didn't get to, I think at one time I was ranked 178th in the U.S. or whatever it was, and I was obviously off 177 spots. But the thing about boxing, what it did for me was it taught me how to dream. It taught me how to fight. Taught me how to believe in myself. Because if you go to a table, just like anything, right? You go to a business meeting, you go to anything, you don't believe in yourself. Who the hell's going to believe in you? If you're selling a product and you don't believe it, who the hell's going to believe it? Who's going to want to buy it? So for me, it was buying to the hype that I am, and sat there and I was like, I put this work in. And what I did is I knew I was the most conditioned guy going in every fight. I maybe not been the fastest or the strongest, or I was right there with them, but I may have been just right there with them in every other category. But condition-wise and intelligent-wise, what I believed is that was what my difference maker. And so when I went to the ring, it was like, okay, how can I break this guy? All I got to do is I got to either break his will or I got to break his mind, right? And there's two ways to do that. You got to push him past his thresholds, push him so he's gassing, push him so he's breathing heavy, push him so he's questioning himself, so and then I would work my ways around that and figure out ways. And sometimes they were on the go and they were instincts in the ring, and sometimes they were premeditative. But normally the best tactics that you ever develop for a fight are in the ring. And everybody thinks, oh, you got to do this, and that. Yes, you have tactics that you're like, okay, I'm going to stay away from his left jab or his left hook as much as I can, and da-da-da. But sometimes you see something that nobody else sees inside that ring, that he blinks before he throws his right hand. He cocks his right hand before he throws his left hook. That he smirks when he jabs. These little things that you're looking at, that he steps on the outside when he likes to hook. These little things you're catching. It's a game of milliseconds. So for me, I went in there and I was like, I put it all on the line. Everything I've ever done in my entire life, I'm going to put it on the line. And guess what? I never cared about, I'm going to go into this ring and I can get knocked out cold in front of everybody. I never thought about that. Why did I never think about that? I was like, because that's not what I need to be thinking about. What I need to be thinking about is I'm going to be knocking this guy out. And it's not about, and all these people who sit there and like, oh, you're going to embarrass yourself in front of people. Guess what? These people aren't doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And very few people are doing what the hell I'm doing. So I'm going to live my life by the way that they're judging me? Hell no.
Absolutely. It doesn't seem like you've been scared a day in your life. And honestly, that mentality is something that everyone needs to learn, whether we're on camera. It took me 2-3 years to even be like, I don't really care what anybody thinks. I don't care what they think. I'm going to come after you, whether I'm talking about Yankees baseball, whether I'm talking about this, that, or the other thing. Maybe not as it comes to fighting, because I'll shell up a little bit, but your confidence needs to be there. And you're lighting a fire under my ass right now, because, I've been in quarantine a little bit and I'm feeling it right now. I'm feeling that fire of the lion right there.
And there it is. But everybody looks at me and they always tell me, they're like, "Oh, Vinny, you're fearless. You never had a fear in your life." And to be honest, I actually get more fears and more doubts than anybody else, because of the things that I'm putting myself in these situations. And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody or anything like that, but what I'm saying is these situations I put them in, they're so high risk and low reward sometimes, or they're sitting there and I can have that humiliation. I can have all these kinds of things, like in the jiu-jitsu competitions I've jumped in with 1 week of training, with triathlons with 3 weeks of training. And I tell everybody about it, because if I fall on my face, I can go, all those doubts eat me up. But what I do is you can't pay attention to your doubts. Your mind is your greatest enemy or your greatest ally. And you have to understand, sometimes what it wants is it wants you to be sleeping in bed because that's fucking comfortable, right? It wants you chilling and sitting in front of your couch because that's fucking comfortable, right? But if you sit there because your body's like, hold on, we need energy, we got to store, we got to chill out. So your body is always sitting there and wants you kind of have the road that's not so bad. It's not that, they don't want you to go to that road less traveled. It doesn't want you to go to, do the hard things, that there's uncertainty, because that creates anxiety inside your mind. And I have all this, but what you have to do, what it comes down to, I tell everybody, is just trust in yourself. Right? You sit there, no one has to have the same talents that Vinny O'Brien has to be special, right? And the same thing with you, coach, the same thing with you, Icey, right? So it's the same thing, like everyone's got their own talents. It's on you to find your talents, make your opportunities, see your opportunities, and go after them, and then when you do go after them, go after it with everything you got. Because the 1 foot in, the 1 foot out, like, okay, I'm going to go after this dream, but I'm going to have my spare 9-to-5 job, just so I have this cushion in the back. Are you really going after your dream? How the fuck are you risking it all? You're not risking it all. And I forgot to ask if this is a...
No, it's fine. You're good.
Anything goes. Keep going.
Okay. But, and I sit there and how are you supposed to know what you're going to get if you don't go all in? How are you supposed to be that, that guy? How are you supposed to be that person if you don't go all in? You don't know. And it's like, I'm not going to take anybody else's movie reviews on something to do. Everyone sits there and says, oh, everybody thinks that you're only athletic if you can play baseball, football, wrestling, and all these, in the media sports. But what about fencing? What about gymnastics? What about martial arts? What about dance? What about all these beautiful things that take such an extreme amount of talent and precision and timing that is a total different athleticism? So when people tell me, like, you have all these fears and all this kind of stuff, guess what? I see something and I'm like, my heart pings and I'm like, I want to do that. Yeah, I want to do that. And it's the faith in myself, and it's the faith in what I believe is God. Whether you believe it's a God or universe, creator, whatever the hell it is, I believe, like, yeah, hey, this is in front of me. I'm going to try it and I'm going to give it everything I got. Because what else?
I haven't been this pumped up in months. I have not been this pumped up in months.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of things, going for things, we have to bring in our producer, Luke, here. Okay. Producer Luke, are you there?
Yeah, I'm coming in. I'm turning my video on.
All right. We got producer Luke because he heard about your experiences in Alaska, and we needed to bring him on. Producer Luke, over to you.
All right. Yeah, there we go. So, I think especially looking at your at the timeline and then your life events, kind of the thing that you really see and you're like, how the heck did this come about, was you moving to Alaska, right? and moving to Alaska and getting into, what was it, salmon fishing?
I was a salmon, cod, and crab fisherman.
So how in the world did you go from boxing to Alaska fishing?
So it's a funny story. So it's
we want to hear the whole thing.
The whole thing. So basically, breaking down. So I was in New York City. I was training with Hector Roca, who had 21 world champions. I was undefeated with him, and I sat there. And one day I was running, jumped off a curb. It was about a foot. It was a big curb, and I landed on a twig, rolled my ankle viciously, and I tore 3 ligaments. And so it took me out it should have been like about 4 to 5 months. It was a bad one, but I wasn't drinking behind the bar for about 1.5 years at the bar I was at, probably about a year. And it was, it's called Fiddlesticks in the West Village. And and they owe me money for saying their name right now, but
no free ads.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, no free ads. So, but I sat there, it was a party bar. tons of college kids, and it was just insanity. This bar was nuts. But for a year, I didn't drink behind the bar. Everybody knew this, right? So then when I tore the ligament, it's kind of like misery loves company. People were just kind of chomping at the bit. The people around me that wanted me to fall, in a sense, they encouraged my drinking, and I made the choice. I did it. But I went off on a bender. I mean, a bender. Being a New York City bartender, no one has any idea what that entails and the partying that comes with it. And especially at the bar that I was at, because all of the bartenders came to my bar. I looked out for all of them. And so that means when I went, so I worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, killed it behind the bar. The girls, the drinking, the drugs, you name it, and everybody. I was the cool bartender coming in, stylish, flash. I would always play, certain songs, da-da-da. And I was that guy. Everybody from the outside is like, oh, Vinny's got the life. He's a boxer. He's a bartender, da-da-da. But I realized real quick, like I did that for 7-8 months. I mean, I drank more at my bar than I did when I went out on the other nights. But the other nights were mayhem, right? And I would say, like, my craziest nights in New York City were Tuesday nights. But I'd sit there and I'd drink Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. Then I'd go out Sunday, Monday, Tuesday with all my bartender buddies, to all the bartenders that I looked after. Now we're having crazy nights. I mean, I can drink anywhere in the New York City area at any hour of the day. You name an hour, I can find you a spot and we're going to go drinking. Right. So it's like, and that's how it was. So now I'm on this bender and I'm sitting there, and there's a kid that I beat in the Golden Gloves, and he's a weirdo. I love him, but he's a weirdo. And he sends me, I never hung out with this kid, never, nothing. He's come to a couple fights, but that's about it. He sends me a message. He goes, yo, dude, I'm fishing in Alaska right now. I see you haven't fished or you haven't boxed in a couple months. You should come out to Alaska and fish. I think you'd be good at it. And I was like, fuck, I'm working behind a bar. I'm like, I look at this message and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I put my phone in my pocket, but it just like pinged me. I was like, what is this? Like Alaska. I never watched Deadliest Catch. I thought Alaska was all snow. I swear to God on my life. I thought it was covered in snow. That's all there was, right? Like I had no idea what Alaska was. So then I sit there and I asked him a couple of questions. Well, he turned out to be, he was on a boat, a salmon season at that time. And so I sat there and I was like, what is this? And I asked some questions. I'm like, how the hell would I even get a job out there? He's like, you just got to kind of come out here and, you just got to, you camp on the beach and you find a job. And I'm like, fuck. You mean camp on a beach and find a job? I was like, do I send a resume? I was like, I can't leave everything right here for a hope and a whim. And he's like, that's kind of how it is. And that's basically all he gave me. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about this shit I shouldn't have been thinking about, but I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, damn. What is this Alaska shit? And I'm looking at my life and I'm gauging and I'm seeing how shallow my life is at this time. It's nothing what I want. It's everything that everybody else thinks I want. It's because I'm in their box, but it was nothing that I wanted, And I sat there and I was like, one day I was going to the park or going to my job. And I sat down in this park in the West Village. I can remember this as clear as day. And this was my God moment. And I sat there and, I'm looking at the sun's gleaming on me, and I'm sitting there and I look at these one-way tickets for 19 days past the date that I have. And I picked that date because I can get my 2 weeks and all this kind of stuff. And I sat there in this park and I looked down at my phone and I heard this thought that I knew was not mine. And that nobody's going to know what I'm saying until you have this moment, you'll know what I'm saying. And all it was a thought that I know was not mine. And it sounds weird and trippy to everybody, but it was a thought. All it said was, Vinny, if you don't leave now, you never leave. And I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it.
I have goosebumps right now. If you could see them on the screen. I'm not kidding.
I see it.
I'm not kidding at all.
As soon as I heard that, I mean, instantaneously, as soon as I heard that thought, I picked the book. I booked a trip and I walked into my bar 5 minutes later and I told my manager who hired me, I was like, hey, bro, I got to get my 2 weeks. And he's like, what? Like, you find a better job? And I'm like, there's no better job than the job I was at. And I was like, nah, I'm going to Alaska. And they're just like, what? And I'm like, and I kind of told people that I had more of a setup job than I really had, so that nobody thought I was a complete psycho, because I was a leaseholder of an apartment. I had 2 roommates that were sitting there like, what are you doing? You're going to get subletter now and all this kind of stuff. And I was dropping everything. I was dropping my career. Everybody was telling me how I was going to die over there, telling me I'm throwing my complete career away, telling me how I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. Nobody, my parents, everybody included, everybody. And it's not because they're bad people. It's just because they didn't know what is in Alaska and they're scared, so and I was like, hey, it is what it is. And I had a last hurrah the night before I left. And it was epic. We had this epic party on top of my roof in Chinatown, and we sat there. And then I went to Alaska with a backpack, at a tent, and what I thought I needed, half of the shit I didn't. But I get there, I land, I stayed in a hotel in Anchorage for the first night that I was there, and then I got on a 5-hour van ride that was like $100, takes you all the way down to Homer. And then I got to Homer, and that's where my buddy was. Well, I set up camp, and I was like, hey, where are you at? And there was a bike on the lawn. It said free bike. And I was like, okay, like this is how Alaska is. So I had to fix the chain. So I fixed the chain, and he's like, hey, come over here. I was like, okay. So then I like ride my bike over there, and he's like, dude, you really came. We drank Jameson, got shit faced, and had one of those nights. And then I learned the kind of the way you had to beat the docks, and you had to go. Beating the docks means you go up to the docks and you see the boats, and you're like, hey, you need deckhand work or day labor, and they kind of test you out and they see what you're about. So I was like, okay. And so I was with a bunch of hippies and fishermen, like hippie fishermen kind of deal, like 20 of us on the beach, and a couple drunkards and shit like that. And yeah, I just I camped out. And every morning I hustled harder than everybody else there. I would wake up at 6 to 7 because I'd hear the ocean coming in because of the tide and then the birds and blah, blah, blah. But I'd get up real quick. I'd go out to the beach. I'd grab some firewood because nobody would do this in the morning. And so I'd grab this so I could always have a fire every night. It was like kind of my way. I'm a fire starter, I realized, And so I was like, okay. So I'd do that. I'd go to the docks and I'd say, hey, you looking for deckhand work? Da-da-da. I'd see all the same boats, sometimes new boats, blah, blah, blah. Then I'd come back at noon, do the same thing, right? Then I'd come back at 5 p.m., trying to maximize the amount of times that I was going to see captains and see possibilities. And I must have did that for a couple, 3 weeks. And I got also like for 2 weeks of that time, I was also an oyster farmer, which my buddy was working on when he got off those boats. And you'd go there, and the guy, he was a French guy. You'd shuck oysters, you'd clean them off, and you'd smoke a J or you drink a beer. Like, the guy was cool, he's chill, but you were making like $15 an hour. I was like, dude, I didn't come here to farm fucking oysters, right? I came here to, I want to be scared for my life out in the ocean. Let's go, right? So, that was kind of my mentality behind it. So then I go ahead and I kept on doing that. And then finally I was probably there about a month and a half or so. And these guys, like 2 guys have already said this to me, separate guys. They're like, and then finally this third guy at a bar says, bro, you're a fisherman, homie. You hustle way too hard not to be working. He's like, you're in the wrong spot. The seasons are over here. You got to go to Kodiak. And I was like, he was the third person that said that. I was like, yep, duly noted. Thank you, God. That's me listening. Kodiak. Next day, took a 13-hour ferry ride, landed in Kodiak. And then I landed in Kodiak. I got my backpack. I got my whole home on my back, right? So basically,
what do you have with you at this point?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I have like the bare necessities. You know what I mean? Like, you make it work. There's places that you can shower at and do your laundry at and da-da-da and all this kind of stuff. And, you just make it work, and it's just basically my entire house. Like, it's my underwear, my socks. And then, you have your tent and you have your certain levels of pants and layers that you have, and I have a pretty decent sized backpack. And then I land in Kodiak, and then I hitchhike a car ride all the way over to the docks. And then that's a thing in Alaska. You can hitchhike everywhere, right? And I hitchhike over there, and they land, and then boom, immediately up and down the fingers. And there's probably about 20 fingers on this docks, 30 fingers on this docks, way bigger than Homer docks. And I sat there, and my last dock, the last finger, the last boat, I got a job. I got a job on a salmon boat. And that started my fishing career. And then I went for salmon for about a month, and I was like, I ain't done with this shit yet. This wasn't, I can do more. And then I found out that there was cod. And then I went on cod for fall and winter season. And that was, holy shit. That changed my life. Alaska changed my life. Alaska made me the man I am today. A lot of things made me the man I am today, but that was the culmination. That was, it's one thing when you're facing an opponent in front of you and you got to fight this, but when you have an ocean, I'll never forget 2 weeks into my first major trip on the cod boat, which we were out for a 3.5-month stunt. But the first time I looked at a 30-foot wave, I shit my pants. Dude, you're like, what the fuck did I just do? What did I just do? What did I get myself into? what did I think was smart? And it's not like I'm worried the boat's flipping or anything like that, because then down the line, there was 10 minimum gnarly moments of my life that I can say I saw my life, and not my life flash before my eyes. I always say it's the people that you love flash before your eyes. The moments get very still and eerie. And yeah, man. And it's just, it's kind of one of those things that, I saw those moments, but when you're sitting there and you're seeing an ocean, I remember I had this moment, and you're sitting there, and I had to run back to the back of the deck because we have a wave wall that you don't see a lot of the ocean. And it's always mayhem and madness for 20 hours straight on a boat. Mayhem and madness, da-da-da, you turn and fish over. And I had this one moment that I had to go to the back for some pot ties, or to the back of the boat, the aft is what they call it. And I go back, and I grab these pot ties, and I turn around, and I knew I had like 10 seconds. Like I was already ahead of the clock. And I see this 30-foot wave right in front of me. And we're going up and down and stuff, but I see this 30-foot wave, and I was just like, holy shit, and now we crest down, and then we crest up, and now I'm on top of this, and I can see God lit it up for me. He lit up this whole ocean, and it's this dark emerald green, and this 30-foot monster is as far as my eye can see, which I felt like was miles, and they were this big. But you can tell that they were this monster, and you're just like, fuck. Like you're 150 miles out and off the shore. You're like, what did I do? Like it just blows your mind. You're trying to comprehend something that's uncomprehendable,
Was there ever a moment that you were kind of holding on for your life, or when you were nervous that something was going to happen to the boat? Like you said, those 10 moments that you thought your life flashed before your eyes, your family members. Was there ever the I'm gonna die moment when you were out there?
That's 100%. And I like one of my major moments that I had, and this was the eeriest, this was the slowest, this is the one that I would have been dead within seconds. And because you get washed off that boat, everybody thinks the boat can turn around and it's just going to find you. It doesn't. That's 42-degree water. And that's in summertime. You're dying in 5 minutes, 7 minutes if you're a fighter. By the time it takes to turn a big boat around in those swells, they can't see you, dude. Your boots are filled up with water. If you ever hit that cold of water, your body goes into shock. I had to jump into it, voluntarily to cut some lines out of our wheel and stuff like that. But it was just one of those things where I had this moment getting back to it. But I was sitting there, and I was a pot monkey. I was the guy that when we stacked out meaning say we'd have 20 pots in a line. We want to move this line somewhere else, right? We got to bring it where it's going to hit harder. We got to hunt. We got to fish, right? So now we're stacking them out. This is actually the most dangerous part of fishing. So now you're stacking these suckers out. And these are anywhere from 7-foot by 7-foot pots or 8-foot by 8-foot pots. And these weigh from anywhere from 700 to 850 pounds. Right? These are steel pots, right? So now we're stacking these suckers. Now this is what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. That is the lightest thing on that boat, right? So we sit there, and we're stacking them now. So now we're 20 feet in the air, and we're stacking more, right? And this is
You're on top of that?
I have to climb up top. I'm the guy, because we have a fork on our boat, or a hydraulic lift that pops this up, sets it down, and when it sets it down, I'm the guy who goes up there and ties it down with 3 pot ties. Right? So now I sit up and I get up there, and there's ones that aren't all tied. We were kind of being quick, and there's just a whole thing, a process that we kind of skipped because we were trying to go through this. And there was probably about 5 pots that were tied together but weren't tied down to the pots below. And we get not a rogue wave, but we just got put in the ditch, which means here's the waves and you're in the middle and your boat is parallel with it. So you're doing this, and that's very, very dangerous, especially when you have, say, 10, 15 pots that weigh 800 pounds. That's a minimum of, 10,000 extra pounds on top of your boat. So thinking about how physics and stuff work, that's how boats go down and sink, right? So, but at that opportunity, what happened was they all slid with me. And I slid because I was on top of the one pot, and it was, and they must have slid about 5 feet. But in that 5 feet, everything went silent. And everything just got eerily silent. And I knew, because I knew the crane makes noise. I knew my crewmen were making noises. I knew the water was making noise, but I couldn't hear any of it. And you're just sitting there, and it just slows down. And all I saw was all my family members and dear friends to me that I loved. And all I said was, God, just please let them know that I love them. That was it. I remember this to this day. And as soon as I said that, within a couple seconds, it was like a movie. It was like boom, back to real-time speed. And the pots stop at the edge, and everyone freaks out. Andre, my homie down at the bottom, takes the crane, slams it down on the other ones, and so they can't move anymore. And everyone just kind of takes a moment, like, "You good?" Like they know the moment I just had, because every one of these guys have had that moment, because they're all fishermen, been there for years, right? And so, like, from the captain to my other two crew members, they're just like, "You good?" And I'm like, "Throw me up a fucking another pot. Let's go." You know what I mean? And that's kind of none of these guys ever called me a greenhorn, never called me anything. Because when I got going, like, you told me what I had to do, I did it. And you're either a cancer on the boat, or you're a guy that's and this is a metaphor for life. You're either a cancer on the boat saying that how it's not going to happen, what the things that are going to go wrong, or all this kind of shit, or you're going to be like, "Yo, fuck it, let's grind. Let's see where the possibilities are." You know what I mean? Let's keep it positive, because it's easy to go negative. That's the easy world. Let's go positive. Let's go that, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Cool, you're not going to get exactly what you wanted. Okay, at least we're positive. We're following time. So I was kind of that guy, and I was just an animal. I was using that training, to be honest. When I got done with pot cod, I sat there, and the last 2 months, no, it was probably about a month and a half that I was on the boat. I was like, this is going to be my Rocky training. I'm going to make a reboot for boxing. I'm going to go after boxing again, right? So now I start doing 1,000 push-ups a day, right? I get it in my head. I'm like, because in between pots, you get this time. I'm like, I'm going to do 20 sets of 50 every day. So I got my other crewmen kind of into it and stuff like that. But I was just bah. And I got off this boat, and I was lifting an 800-pound pot. It normally takes 1 to 3 guys, depending. I was manhandling one pot by myself, 40 feet across the deck, just fucking yak. It was just I was that bulldog, and they were just like, and I fed off of it, and that, Alaska, the beauty, the nature, the ferociousness, the uncertainty, the God you feel out there, the all of it, it made me who I am, man. It made me Vinny O'Brien. It completed me in many ways. Not saying that I'm completed, but in many ways of who I am, I can trace that moment right now to where I am today.
It sounded like the lion was still alive in Alaska. We came up with a hypothetical in our production meeting last night.
Okay.
We'll give you a little background on everyone first. We'll start off with producer Luke. Producer Luke was a Division I basketball player. Probably, nice. What are your dimensions, Luke? Like 6'1", 185? What are you?
This is about 6 foot, 180 right now.
Nice. So he's the most in shape of us. I'm a little taller, but I've a couple things to do with my body that I need to improve. But I would say I'm more of a vocal guy. So, and then we got Coach. Coach is a leader. So Coach would be barking out commands and whatnot. If you put the 3 of us on a ship in Alaska, what job would you give each one of us?
Okay.
Well, let me take a sip.
Or if it was 4 of us and we needed to survive and actually catch fish, what would each of us be doing?
Yeah.
All 4 of us.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Luke, you'd be a rail guy, and you'd be our hook guy. Meaning you have to throw a hook that's attached to about a 30-foot to a 40-foot line, and that's how we grab our buoys, right? So you got to be on your shit. So when the wind is howling at 60 knots and there is the 20-foot, 30-foot waves, you're still grabbing that buoy. So you're going to be in the high-pressure situation. You have the athletic ability with basketball, so I'd put you in that situation. And then
and I got the arm from baseball too.
That's it. So there it is. So now, and there's one of 2 rail guys, and there's 2 different responsibilities. And then Icey, you would be my other rail guy. So you guys are the guys that land the pots, right? And you guys are the guys that they come into the boat, and by your hydraulic guy bringing them up, you're then gonna grab these pots and then you load it into a dog. That's where you, whether it's crab or whether it's cod, you unleash them into your catch table, and then you're either bleeding them or the crabs, or you're throwing them down, whatever. But
I need
then
to do some more push-ups if I'm going to be doing that with you two. So continue.
yeah. So Icey, I'd put you. So you'd be the first rail guy. Luke, Icey, you'd be the other rail guy. And then what you do is you bait all the pots. Any kind of mending you have to do, which is a ton of sewing. There's also steel pots that sometimes you need to weld them. You're kind of a utility guy, which you're going around. You're also throwing the lines over when the pots are going. You're the guy. You're that utility guy. You're that guy that's kind of all around and just kind of messing with it. And then, and you're also landing the pots. And then coach, you would be the hydraulic guy, which in terms kind of necessarily you're the deck boss, right? So, and the deck boss is the captain for the coach, right? So, and then you'd sit there and you'd be the hydraulic, and you're the guy who controls this pot. So you have to have a lot of the timing down by the time these waves are going with the roll of our boat and all this kind of stuff. You have a very, 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 very important job with the hydraulics alone, but then you also have to make sure that we're on task of doing everything else. So you kind of have a foot in everyone's their game plans and what they're doing. So you're kind of there and you let them do the thing, but you also got to make sure everybody's on it. I finished as a deck boss. And then I'd say, just because of my experience in Alaska, if we're going to try and catch something, I'd say I'd be the captain. But that's just because, but that's just because I'd say, just because I know, a little bit of something. I had a couple of boats that wanted me to run their boats. And, I was kind of getting groomed to become that guy. Just because of how I hold myself. And there's it's like mechanical engineering out there. You got to know a lot of things, especially when you get salmon fishing and there's winches. You got 3 different winches on your boats, and you got to know how these hydraulics go, and you got to fix this. And like, I've welded pots out into water, and when I was on water, and you're just sitting and you're swaying, and you guys like, hey, you know how to weld? And I'm like, yeah, I welded in high school. Fucking give me that. Let's figure it out. So it's like, it's just one of those things you just kind of do. But that would be the boat. And I'd call it, we call it the C word. SEA C word, right?
Love it, absolutely love it. Let's change gears for a second, because you're coming out here. I mean, you got the thing on your arm. You're bruised up a little bit, battered a little bit. Obviously, that doesn't stop you. I just watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I want to know if that's kind of like how it is when everything happens. And basically just give me a day in the life of a stuntman.
So the day in the life of a stuntman, it all depends on the kind of stuntman that you are, And so I'd say not all stuntmen and stunt women are created equal, because a lot of stunt men get the qualification or the razz of hey, stuntman. But stunt women, there's a lot of stunt women, a ton actually, that I know that are complete badasses. And the thing is, we all have to take falls and all this kind of stuff, but we can kind of hide pads in certain areas. Sometimes you can't, but women, they're normally doing these falls in backless dresses and spaghetti straps and doing fights in heels, and they're doing some gnarly stuff. So it's so for me, it's the familyhood of it is, and how I look at it is, it's the real ones. And it's the real ones in the stunt community. It's not the people that are just trying to say, oh, yeah, I'm a stunt man or I'm a stunt woman because they want to go to the bar and impress some people. It's the people that are putting in the work that normally come from a professional setting, not all the time, but or treat stunts as a professional sport. And so for me, it's, whether you come from a professional setting or not, when you treat it like, okay, listen, in the beginning, I wasn't working as much as I am now. So I'm sitting there, but what I looked at was, okay, but it's still a 40-hour to 50-hour work week, right? So I need to be putting in days where I'm training, whether that's, I'm at the LAKC working on my trampoline and my air awareness, where I'm working on tumbling skills and all this for, 2 days a week. I'd go there for 2 hours. Then I go, there's another place that's Tempest, that's about free running. And again, kind of, you're similar, but it's about tricking and stuff like that. But again, air awareness, trampoline work and stuff like that. Then there's places where you work on your kicks and your martial arts and on that kind of aspect. And then, and then I look at my motorsports and my bikes, and then my go-karts, my drift cars, my things that all tune me up in a way that makes me who I am. You train them every day as much as you can and whatever you can do, and you work your ass off. And so for me, I worked my ass off. I got here, and my buddy who got me into the business, he got me my first job. Well, he put my name in for the first job. and it was a boxer, which perfect worked out on Ray Donovan. And then he was the guy. He was detrimental in my career and changed my life in a way, where he showed me how to go after the business. And it's an old school methodology, a method in a sense where you sit there and it's an old boys club, boys and girls club, meaning, right? But it's you sit there and it's about what you do. It's about how you train. It's about how you show up. And there's a thing that in stunts that we do, it's called hustling. And what you do is you hustle sets. So hustling sets means I have a buddy that's on a set, or I have a PA that's on a set, or I have somebody that knows a set that's going down. Or sometimes I've even just driven to certain locations that I know a lot of sets go to, that they recycle these sets. And I'll go there and there'll be a production there. And you go in, you sneak in with your headshot, you sneak on the set, and you find the coordinator. And you find the coordinator and you give him this 30-second elevator pitch in a sense, sometimes. And for me, my elevator pitch was like, hey, I'm Vinny O'Brien. I just thought I want to stop by and say hello. And I was a professional boxer, raced motocross, Alaskan commercial fisherman. And I just love to drop my stuff and hopefully look at it, and it was like that. And then sometimes those conversations, I'd be like, you need any help here or stuff like that. And those conversations sometimes, where I'd stay for a couple hours, granted it's free time, but it's about how you get yourself into the business, how you get yourself known. Cause I had an awesome guy, this guy, Colin Fallenweider, who's an amazing stuntman. He's the guy, he doubles Jude Law. He does most superheroes, this guy doubles, and he's epic. And he told me, he goes, Vinny, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you and what you can do. And so for me, and I came into this I was kind of an anomaly, in a sense, because people are like, wait, hold on. They look at me as I'm just a fighter. I come in as a boxer, but then we do these motocross days and they see, and they're like, you can tell that I have my racing experience and I have my days that, that I've spent on a bike, because I'm hanging in a sense. Now there's our top motocross guys that are just whooping my ass out there, but for the most part, the other guys, like, I'm still holding my own and doing my thing, as in a sense. And so they see this, and for me, I can ride a motorcycle, wheelie a motorcycle, nosy a motorcycle, slide a motorcycle, then get off, get into a gnarly fight, throw kicks, wrestle, slam, then hop into a car, slide that car, then, get out, and then I have to jump off of which I have done 60-foot high falls, 80-foot high falls, and jump into an airbag that's, 60 or 80 feet, and then boom, while I'm flipping, or, and then get tackled, or and then get off and then have to act some stuff, So for me, I pride myself in kind of being the all-arounder. I kind of pride myself on, I'm that guy, and I've always kind of wanted to be that way where, I want you to, when you have to double a lead guy, which I'm kind of a lead guy size, that you don't need to call 2 or 3 doubles, unless we're doing splitter units and stuff like that. You call me and it's like, Vinny will get it done. And that's what I hope I perceive off. And that's what I've kind of built as my reputation. And it's gotten me some, I in the beginning, because I can trick on BMX, I can do skateboarding, I can do all that kind of stuff. So I doubled for Dylan Minette on all 4 seasons of 13 Reasons Why. And then that was a big break in my career. But I hustled after that. You guys want to hear a funny story about this, right? So I go ahead and there's a post about this job, and they're looking for a double, and I'm a good double for the kid. So then the coordinator, he needs to see me, my BMX skills. So I'm at like a skate park at this time with my one buddy, and my one buddy is one of the cousins from Breaking Bad. And he's like, dude, and I was like, I need a bike. And nobody had a bike there. We're all skateboarders, right? And so I'm like, fuck. So I see this kid across the street, and I start running after this kid, right? And I'm like, yo, dude. I get up to this kid and he's like, what? Like, he's shook. Like, what the hell are you doing running after me? And I go, dude, I was like, this is going to be really random. I was like, but I'll give you $10 because I was hurting for money at the time too. Right. But I was like, I'll give you $10. I was like, I just need to wheelie on your bike, do a slide out, jump over a curb, nothing crazy. I was like, I got to send this. I was like, I'm a stunt man. I kind of use that to help. And he's like, okay. And like, I don't look like that vicious. So then we have to walk back to my buddy. Now it's a really awkward walk the whole time because I don't know what to say to this kid. This kid's just like, am I about to get jumped? Like, he has no idea, right? So then we get back, and my buddy Daniel Moncada, he's one of the twins, like the serial killers on Breaking Bad. He's the reoccurring, right? But he's all tatted up, shaved head, crazy beard. I mean, full body tat. So this kid's looking at me like, oh, like, I'm done, right? So I'm like, all right, cool. He's like, he's gonna film. I was like, he's really cool, and And this kid Danny is just such a sweetheart. He's just awesome. So he's like, oh, dude, he's just gonna do a couple things. So I go around, do it, send him to the coordinator. He's like, boom, you got the job. I got the job that way, right? So that's like it was my hustle and technique in a way. And I got on that job. And then by the end of the 4th season, I finished up with a really amazing coordinator, Rex Reddick, who brought me in the last season as co-coordinator for 6 of the episodes. I was co-stunt coordinator. I was fight choreographer for a couple boxing fights. I doubled 3 guys on that show, and I just kind of really stepped on my game at that point, you know, and I did some really cool stuff, you know. So it was exciting. It was cool to be in that opportunity. They all seen me kind of raise my level, and then I worked on Tenet, which this is my most recent projects. But then I worked on Tenet, which is a new Christopher Nolan movie, which is going to blow everybody's mind. It's Inception, it's James Bond. It's going to be absolutely insane. It meets The Matrix. It's insanity, right? And I was on that for a month, and then I decided to go to Thailand. Well, actually, I did a triathlon before I left, which I trained for 3 weeks for, and I just kind of jumped into it. Then I left for Thailand for a month because I needed a reboot, just Vinny O'Brien reboot by myself. And I went and trained Muay Thai out there for a month. I actually almost fought out there until I got a call for work. I was gonna do a Muay Thai fight, which I wish I still did, but that was on the table. But then I got a call to come back from one of my coordinator buddies that I hustled at 4 a.m. one time at the Golden Gate Bridge, which was like a 90-minute Uber ride from my hotel because I was on 13 Reasons Why up there. But anyways, he calls me. He's like, "Hey, I need you to double Jared Leto for this Morbius movie, which is a new Marvel like vampire-esque kind of film and stuff like that." And he's like, "It's about a month of work." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I came back, and I had to fly back the next day. And then I flew back, and then I got from that. Then I went to a double Jason Statham for a fight scene on Fast 9. Then I doubled the guy on Venom 2, and then I went on like For All Mankind, which is a TV show, and then the pandemic hit. But yeah, so I just kind of been rocking and rolling, and just really blessed to have the opportunities. And I'm everyone's like, "Oh, you're just a freak athlete, or you're just this or that or whatever." But you know, or people hit you with the backhanded compliment, "Oh, you're just lucky," you know. And it's like, you know, I'm lucky this many times. You know what I mean? So it's like,
absolutely not. Don't listen to those people. You're a hustler. You're a fighter. You're not afraid of anything. Clearly, all of those things. So don't let those people doubt you. I mean, the haters come in, the doubters come in. It doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing. If you're getting hated on, you're doing something right. I'll tell you that, Vinny the Lion.
Well, yes, 100%. 100%.
Icey, do you have any other questions for Vinny before we go?
No more questions. I just have one thing that I got to say. The guy, let's just recap for 1 second.
Go ahead. Do it.
Started with motocross. Won the Golden Gloves. Became a pro fighter. Was fighting in front of over 10,000 people. Moved to Alaska on a whim. Essentially lived in a tent for – how long were you there?
I was there off and on for 2 years, but I was in a tent for a month and a half.
Month and a half on the beach in a tent. Comes back and is now one of the most prolific stuntmen in Hollywood. Let's get this movie about his life.
Let's go. Let's get – yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know who I'm going to call. I'm going to make a call. I don't know if it's going to do anything. I can't make any promises.
You already have the script. I mean, it's pretty simple from other than that.
No.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, when you put it like that, all right.
Listen, the facts are the facts. We had to go through it. I mean, we have so many questions for you. We could be here all day. I mean, we're usually a 45-minute podcast. We just did an hour 10 with our pleasure. Absolutely so much fun. Vinny the Lion O'Brien, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been an absolute blast. And I love enjoying these stories, and I hope that with my stories and the things that I say, it's not just pat myself on the back and hear myself talk, but hopefully that people can see that I come from nothing, and I worked my ass off, and I got to a place because of the work ethic that I put at it, and it's the effort, and hopefully that they can learn some lessons from the paths and the mistakes that I've made in my life and the choices that I made in my life that ended up where I am. And it all boils down to what Kobe Bryant says, the work. You got to put in the work. And if you put in an hour a day, an hour a week at basketball, because he says basketball, he's like, you'll get good. But if you put an hour a day, you're exponentially going to get great, because the math doesn't lie. the work is there. So for me, no matter whatever it is that you love to do or something that pings your heart or whatever it is, I just say go after it with everything you have. Put the work in. And if you don't know what that is, you haven't tried enough shit. So jump out and dare to fail. I enjoy failing because you don't fail. Everyone thinks there's this big failure because they want to live up on this Instagram hype. You just learn. That's all it is. You either win or you learn. So it's and both you're learning, to be honest. So I just hope that these stories that I got to share with you guys are awesome hosts. Asked some really great questions, and I really enjoyed this time. And I hope it helps some of your listeners, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, boys.
Great, let's cut and reset.
What top 3 are we doing today?
Today we are doing top 3 things after COVID. And I want to give a shout out to Luke, who's been working hard, absolutely been killing it. We love you. We're happy to have you on the team. This is just another stepping stone for King Luke because everybody loves Luke. So we're going to start. We're doing top 3 things after COVID, doing the fantasy draft, just like we would do on a Daily Chill. We're going to let Luke go first because he is in the trenches editing this afterwards. Then we'll go with Icey. Then we'll swing it back to me for the third pick. So, Luke, let's start things that are going to happen that change after COVID.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach. I love you guys too. One thing I'm going to go with, and I'm going to get a little more specific. I think everybody knows that maybe greetings are going to change or handshakes, whatever it might be, that might not exist anymore or totally change. I think the one greeting that might especially change is the little kiss on the cheeks.
I had that on my list.
This is the very, I'm coming from 5 years in Europe, much more known in Europe, maybe the two cheeker, even in different countries, they know each other to do maybe 3 or 4 cheeks. I think Austria does 3 when Germany only does 2. But those, which I'm not a fan of anyway. I think it's kind of awkward. I don't know where the threshold is between who I give the cheek kiss to, who not. So I'm kind of okay with this one being gone. And I think the cheek kiss greeting is something that won't exist.
86. It's going to be 86.
Out of here.
Yeah, so I actually it's tough because I was trying to incorporate the double kiss into like my vibe as a person. I was trying to give off more of like a Euro flair when I meet people. But I'm gonna go with double dipping. If you start double dipping after COVID, there's gonna be a fight on your hands. People are, if you go mozzarella stick in the marinara and you try to do it twice, you're out. You're eliminated from the mozzarella sticks.
Can't happen.
All right, so I love that too, and I'm going to stay on the same thing. And this just kind of sucks, but something that we're going to lose. We might lose free samples at these stores now. I don't think anybody wants to be touching these, so we're going to have that. And I'm going to stay on food, obviously, because I'm always thinking about it. And I'm going to go with buffets. We're 86ing buffets, people. You're not going up to check. You don't want the same eggs that some other guy or some other woman was just dipping through. He might have coughed on the food. We're trying to keep it clean over here, 86ing buffets.
My second round pick, I'm going nachos. I think nachos are a thing of the past. Personal nachos at your house, okay. Maybe a personal nacho at, Chili's, okay. But you're not really splitting nachos at the table anymore.
Unless you're a trustworthy person or a significant other, nachos are definitely 86.
Luke, over to you.
Yeah, nachos are tough. Yeah, so I got 2 in a row now to close it out. I think one thing that there's definitely going to be less of coming out of COVID is babies who are named Karen. The name Karen has gotten so blown up with COVID. If anybody is naming their kid Karen right now, they're nuts. So Karen's done. The name Karen is done.
Canceling Karen.
We're not, 100 years down the road, you're going to be like, remember this name Karen that existed in the 2000s? Like, doesn't exist anymore. So Karen's out. And, as my last number 3, I think the thing that's going to change, and we already were used to it now, but it's masks. I think masks are just going to be around, like they've already been in Japan, right? If you're feeling sick, you throw a mask on, and So I think that's something that, everybody, you have to wear it right now, but even 2-3 years down the road, once a vaccine comes along, whatever it might be, still when you're sick, throw a mask on, and that's going to be a thing that's going to stick. Shout
out to the people with, maybe kind of a messed up grill. You don't need to buy braces anymore. Just throw on a mask. You're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
With my last pick, I'm going to go with, can I get a sip of that? Is done. People aren't going to be getting a sip of that. I'm a former water boy in college. If we have Gatorade bottles and everyone's kind of drinking the same ones, that's done. Everyone's get their own glass, pay for your own drinks.
Dude, everybody throwing those cups, drinking out of the cups, throwing them under the bench or whatever like that. Nobody's picking those up. That's not happening.
It's over.
So that one's great. I like that. It just no sips, no drinks. Can't do it. Love that. This is what's been going on at airports. Phones, wallets, and keys in bins. They're being 86 as well. They're saying throw all your stuff in your bag, and they're going it through your X-ray. So now you don't have to have all the bins in it. You just have your bags that you put on the stuff. I think they're getting rid of bins completely, which I'm pretty pumped about because I'm always the guy with the shit in. I mean, they got the wallet in one side and got the, whatever you're doing, you got snacks everywhere. Just keep it in your bag, keep it in your pockets, walk through the X-ray machine. Honestly, saves me a lot of time and hassle. That's what I'm going with my third round pick.
It's a solid all around. And viewers, let us know if you think of any other great ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to get that going. And then is that it for our draft? Everybody got 3 picks, right?
We're all good.
That was it.